Pleasure to be here this morning. I'm really excited to talk to you today about everything that the Department of Justice is doing to advance everything we're talking about today. Innovation, data, all for what to help us accomplish one of our key missions is making the public safe, keeping our law enforcement officials safe. I'd like to thank the White House Office of Science and Technology for its leadership, and particularly for picking out officer safety and public safety as one of the key things as key areas that it's ripe for innovation. Well, I was at the last Datapalooza, and at that Datapalooza, I had the privilege of announcing the Justice Department's first challenge. One of the key things that we're interested in is keeping officers safe through providing them with excellent body armor. But we didn't know if body armor was keeping them safe enough, and we wanted to come up with non-destructible ways of checking whether body armor continued to maintain its ballistic properties. Well, we issued that challenge, and it was Purdue University School of Aeronautics and Astronautics Engineering that won that challenge. And I'm sure, much to your surprise, we don't have much contact with the aeronautic engineers out in the community. Funny, but they just don't come to DOJ for research grants or research questions. But because of that challenge vehicle, they answered the call, and they came up with a very clever way of testing body armor, importing a lot of their knowledge into it, and that challenge has been a huge success for us. Throughout our Office of Justice programs, we've been doing a lot to try to make our data as available as possible. For 40 years, the National Institute of Justice has been archiving data that its grantees produce. And all of that's now freely, publicly available at the National Archive of Criminal Justice Data, and links from safety.data.gov will get you right there. There's about 700 data sets there, includes 20 years of crime victimization statistics, 80,000 households, about 140,000 individuals get surveyed every year, and you got 20 years of that data now easily available. 35 years of prisoner statistics, if that's all available for you too. We actually have 20 years worth of our grant awards to sift through. Who got them, how much, what did they do with them? More on this in just a moment. But to continue the momentum going forward, last fall we worked with Todd Park and the U.S. CTO staff to convene a law enforcement officer safety data jam. We brought together our data scientists, entrepreneurs, law enforcement officials to discuss trying to get data to address critical law enforcement safety issues. So out of that session, it was fantastic. We had two really great ideas come out of it. The first, something called risk terrain modeling. You'll hear a bit more about that in a moment. It's RTM, risk terrain modeling, helps you visualize and statistically validate the reasons why crime patterns might emerge. In addition, we have an app called B Sharp that came out of that data jam as well. It's sort of an early warning system for officers who are perhaps getting a little sleepy on the job. Maybe they're not quite as reactive as they should be. There's a little device, the Ready Band, that they wear on their wrist. It's already been used by DOD and researchers to sort of monitor the wearers, and they're going to start using that on police officers to test alertness and warn them when perhaps they could use a break. So we're at a Datapalooza. We should talk data some more. So in keeping with President Obama's digital government strategy, I mentioned that OJP has established 20 years of OJP grant awards. That data is freely available. It's open, machine readable, constantly being updated. Daily, that data is being updated. It's formatted in an API that can stream to your applications, your information. And as we learn about the demands from the field of what kind of data we have that's going to be most useful, we're going to be releasing more APIs to make as many available to be most useful to the field. Those APIs are free of charge, no registration required, unlimited access, unlimited use. You're welcome to everything that we have. Protecting America's law enforcement officers is one of our top priorities at the Department of Justice. And I mentioned DOJ's body armor program to make sure that officers have the most effective body armor to date. And we're always looking for new ways to make the officers safer and safer. And one thing we've learned is that information has a real key way, as a key opportunity to make our officers even safer. Knowing what's in front of them, they're about to go into a situation, getting them as much information as they can before they go into that situation has the potential to keep them safer. Information about who's behind them, which of their buddies are there to support them as they're moving into a situation. Having information at their fingertips we see as a potential way to really continue to improve officer safety. And as a result, we're looking for ways of continuing to use information most effectively and get it into their hands. So we have issued a new challenge dealing with ultra-high-speed, or UHS, networks that allow sort of real-time, individually tailored information to be delivered to the users. So what we're looking for the design creation of UHS-compatible apps that measurably improve the efficiency and effectiveness of criminal justice and public safety services and operations. These apps could alert criminal justice and public safety agencies to threats, disasters. They could be apps that provide simulation for law enforcement, first responders. Or they could enhance training or provide sort of immediate feedback on performance. Whatever might spark new ideas to make our officers safer. So our goal is to encourage the development of tools that are capable of improving our justice system operations and always keeping our officers safe. So after this morning session, staff from our Office of Justice Programs will lead a brainstorming session for those interested in the NIJ Ultra High Speed Apps Challenge. Those interested can remain afterwards to be a part of that data jam. And let me note that our challenge is open and will be open until February 14th. We're also interested in your ideas about future challenges. We've launched about 4 challenges so far, and finding the model to be really, really innovative for us. We're interested in new ideas for new challenges. We see you as key partners in our mission. We can't do it alone to improve the safety of America's communities. And I certainly believe that technology is one of those things that can really help us in public safety area to really maximize the knowledge we have at our disposal and realize the important gains in the quality and safety of our work. So I'm looking forward to the discussion today. I'm really eager for our afternoon session, looking at ultra-high-speed information and ultra-high-speed apps, and really looking forward to what innovation can bring to the Department of Justice and the future of criminal justice. Thanks.
Good morning. I'm Brian Vila. I'm a professor of criminal justice at Washington State University, but I study the impact of sleep on human performance. And I'm really proud today to demo a product that we've built using open data and readily available components to help keep our heroes out on the street performing at their highest levels. The B-Sharp Alertness Monitor is an exciting innovation. It's a simple app for police officers that takes data from a wristband, uses it to assess how tired the officer is, and then pushes warning messages to them on a smartphone when they're dangerously drowsy. The idea for this app was born last fall at the Data Jam on officer safety at the White House. That's where I met my teammates who are in the back of the room. Joe Strang and Greg Godbout, who's a Presidential Innovation Fellow. As we brainstormed and B-Sharp emerged, we got more and more enthused. And Todd Park isn't just the happiest guy, he's one of the most persuasive guys on earth. And he pushed us over the edge with his call to action. So we built the prototype in 2 months. Then we found a transition partner in Fatigue Science, and they provided part of the technology that powers B-Sharp and demonstrated that it could work with their ReadyBands, which are very highly regarded wrist actigraphs. When I was a cop, and I was in a prior life here, I had lots of personal experience with extreme fatigue. Excuse me, I'm lost here with my glasses. There we go. Now that I'm a scientist, I know that I wasn't alone. Nearly all police officers in the U.S. report being routinely fatigued on the job, thanks to shift work, long work hours, and overtime. And that fatigue can have deadly consequences, especially on the road. Half of all police deaths every year are traffic-related, and a large proportion of them have to do with fatigue as a contributing factor. We named that app Be Sharp because of this, because it helps officers maintain their alertness, and that's the alertness edge that helps keep them safer on the job and improves job performance. What Be Sharp does is it monitors the output from algorithms in the cloud from their wristbands and helps predict how tired they are based on prior sleep, what time of day is it, and how long they've been awake. That algorithm was developed by the Federal Railway Administration and the Department of Defense using accident data from 500,000 hours worked by trained crew members. Talk about open data working. That algorithm's used all over the world now. Be Sharp works like this. First, the officer wears a wristband, I've got one on, 24/7. It regularly sends sleep data up to the cloud for analysis that determines where the officer is in terms of performance compared to his optimal performance. Then, Be Sharp monitors that and pushes out a warning message every time they pass a transition point. Okay, let me give you an example of this. When you're really, really impaired, it'll push out a message that says, your alertness score is 30% below optimum, and you're 80% less, I'm sorry, I'm stumbling all over the place. You're 80% slower in your reaction time than you normally would be. It tells you, you've got to stop driving, you need to call for relief. And it also says what to do. Find a safe place to nap, and don't drive until you're more well-rested. Why is this important? Well, thanks to openly available research data from the National Institute of Justice and the Justice Department, we know that nearly all police officers are routinely fatigued on the job. This is dangerous. You can't fight nature. If you don't get enough sleep, you're going to have micro-sleeps, just these short periods in which you're not there. That random sleep is really dangerous. If you look at this police officer, it's in the morning, he's been up all night long, he's driving up a broad, almost no traffic highway, and he has one of those lapses of attention. Tragically, that lapse happened just as a swarm of bicyclists came down the hill around the bend, and he plowed right into them. You can see that. Maybe you can see the wheel of one of the bicycles under the car there. Well, there are three major problems that need to be solved before individual officers can solve the problem of fatigue. First off, the first problem is that people are just lousy judges of how fatigued they are. Okay, you can't judge your own fatigue impairment well at all. Second, by the time you notice that you're starting to get drowsy, you're already seriously impaired. I saw somebody at the back of the room trying to stand up, yawning. You're already impaired. And third, the countermeasures that you can take to get over that impairment temporarily take time to work. A cup of coffee takes at least 20 minutes to get into your system and start making you more alert. Be Sharp addresses this because it pushes objective fatigue data, assessments, to you before you become critically impaired, and then it suggests what you ought to do. Well, this is important. Fatigue's one of the few critical problems dogging police that we can improve, and inexpensively, which is important these days. Be Sharp's simple, it's doable, and it's a relatively cheap tool, and it'll help police manage fatigue much better. But it also has potential outside fatigue. And it's interesting, I wrote these before all of these people talked, but here it is. It's a natural for first responders, for nurses, for disaster response teams, for railroad train crews, for the military, for anybody who has to work long work hours and has trouble getting sleep. It also has commercializable potential. You can look at Wired magazine this month and get another picture besides this. In a nutshell, B Sharp is simple, it's easy to implement, and relatively inexpensive. And it can help make both police officers and the communities they serve much more safe. And then finally, just on my way out, it looks like we're going to get this app launched very, very soon. And that's good news to us. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. On behalf of my co-authors, Les Kennedy and Eric Pisa, who are here today, we're truly honored to be here and to introduce you to risk terrain modeling. You may be familiar with the concept of hotspots or clusters of crime. For an analogy in a different and much more benign context, let's consider a place where children play repeatedly. When we step back from our focus on the children, we might realize that located where they play exist swings, slides, open fields, features of the environment that suggest a playground, and that attract children there instead of other locations that are absent such entertaining features. In a similar way, spatial factors can influence the seriousness and longevity of crime problems. Risk terrain modeling, or RTM, identifies the risks that come from features of a landscape and models how they co-locate to create unique behavior settings for crime. The RTM process begins by testing a variety of factors thought to be geographically related to crime incident locations. Valid factors are selected and then weighted to produce a final model that basically paints a picture of places where crime is statistically most likely to occur. I'm using crime as the outcome event because that's the focus of this presentation. But we know of RTM being considered for other topics such as injury prevention, public health, traffic accidents, border security, or maritime piracy. RTM was developed to leverage data from various sources and use readily accessible methods that other people could replicate easily. We reviewed library databases available through our university, but we also used open research publications from the US Department of Justice or other outlets such as Google Scholar to identify possible risk factors for different types of crimes. We obtained base maps such as roads and city outlines from the US Geological Survey and the US Census Bureau. Crime and risk factor data sets are particular to the study setting, but can often be downloaded from open sources such as Open Data Philly or the Chicago Data Portal. And we perform statistical tests using free tools such as R or CrimeStat or the Center for Disease Control and Prevention's EpiInfo. Now, what you're about to see is one of our inaugural risk terrain models for shootings in Irvington, New Jersey. This is a town of about 3 square miles that suffered from chronic violent crime problems. I'm going to use the street view tool in Google Earth to zoom into a low-risk area identified by this model. Notice the environmental context of this low-risk place. There's well-maintained streets, sidewalks are well-maintained, lawns are green, the homes appear to be occupied or at least well-maintained. There's little litter, if any, and very little other obvious signs of disorder. Now we're going to compare this lower risk area and its environmental context to a higher risk area using our model. When we zoom in using the street tool, you should immediately be able to compare the differences. Notice the streets and sidewalks that are in disrepair, the vacant and burnt out buildings, the litter, the broken bottles, the graffiti, and other signs of disorder or damage to property. As this video demonstrates, some settings can create the perception in offenders that they are suitable locations for illegal behavior. RTM diagnoses the spatial attractors of crime to identify these settings. Now, RTM is not difficult. Many agencies are using it on a regular basis. But to make it more accessible for people with limited GIS or statistical abilities, Rutgers University developed the RTMDX utility, which is a free app that automates risk terrain modeling. 7 police departments are currently using this utility as part of NIJ-funded projects to inform interventions that address a designated priority crime type at target areas. RTM is first used to diagnose the spatial factors of crime at high crime places. Then strategies are designed to suppress crime in the short term and to mitigate the spatial risk factors at these areas so they are less attractive to criminals for the long term. Now, remember the high-risk area with the vacant properties in the Irvington video? Here is a more recent street view of that exact same location. In this case, the vacant buildings were replaced by community gardens. This is one example of how police and other stakeholders can mitigate spatial risks. Resources such as crimesolutions.gov can help to identify other evidence-based practices. A tactical example of RTM was recently inspired by last year's White House Data Jam. Using data from Chicago's open data portal, we found that where police beats are symbolized in black on this map, police officers have a 75% greater likelihood of being assaulted or injured compared to officers working other beats. Furthermore, examining high-risk places within these beats informs tactical decision-making when responding to calls for service at specific micro-level locations. Police want to stop playing whack-a-mole. They identify crime hotspots and often deploy their resources there to deter illegal behavior, only to have it pop up somewhere else or return to the same place once police leave. RTM identifies the most likely places where crime will emerge in the future, even if it hasn't occurred there already. Risk terrain modeling and better and more accessible data are making crime analysis more precise and actionable. We're very excited to be part of that endeavor and to share risk terrain modeling with you today. Thank you.
How has the morning been? Awesome, 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 awesome. It's great to see you all. As Brian mentioned, I'm Todd Park, open data enthusiast and the U.S. Chief Technology Officer. I want to take a few minutes to help close out this fantastic morning and to thank everybody again for your incredible contributions. First of all, I'm a huge fan, unbelievably huge fan, of every entrepreneur, innovator, technologist, developer, researcher, presidential innovation fellow, and public servant who has presented their incredible innovations today, innovations that promise to tangibly improve public safety for Americans across the country. Thank you so much. Your efforts are helping to strengthen the safety of Americans everywhere. We're all going to be a lot better off because of your amazing work. Thank you also for sharing your inspiration and enthusiasm with everyone who's been here today and who's watching on the webcast. That can-do spirit is really contagious. I know that many in this room and who are watching today already have new ideas they're going to pursue thanks to you and the inspiration that you have provided. We've come a long way since May 2012, when the White House and agency partners and innovators launched together the Safety Data Initiative to tap into the power of open data and to help generate innovative new ideas that can help save lives. At its core, the initiative is an effort to make government data relating to every aspect of public safety more accessible. The goal is to help fuel invention by American innovators everywhere and catalyze the development of novel ways to help people make informed decisions about their safety and the safety of others. And of course, this effort is part of a broader commitment by the administration to unleash the power of open data more generally for all kinds of innovative uses that benefit Americans. Over the past few years, we've launched a series of open data initiatives, which have released in machine-readable form troves of valuable data that were previously hard or impossible to access in areas such as health, energy, education, public safety, and global development. Today, these data are being used by innovators, entrepreneurs, technologists, businesses, researchers, and the public to create all kinds of new services and applications like the ones we've seen here today. You can check out this nonstop buffet, ever expanding, of free data at the very exciting new incarnation of data.gov, built by a lot of the folks who are in this room. Check it out, download data, experiment with it, and build amazing new innovations that can help save and improve lives everywhere. It's amazing to see specifically how the safety data community has grown over the last year and a half, and to witness the progress made since our first Safety Datapalooza in September 2012. Let's actually just take a moment, first of all, to thank Deputy Secretary Horton for providing an auditorium big enough to hold you all. Thank her for her leadership and support. So thanks so much to USDA and the Deputy Secretary. And just briefly recap, today we've heard from top officials from across the administration and from across the country about many of the key public safety challenges facing our nation. And we've seen what's possible when innovators can begin to tap into open data to address those challenges, whether by creating a new app or service, providing safety information to American families, or incorporating safety data into your products to better protect consumers. And it's working. As we've heard today, entrepreneurs and innovators are using these safety data to help start businesses, create jobs, and solve important problems. This morning, you heard Administrator Winfrey speak about the value of open data at the Department of Transportation. You heard amazing entrepreneurs like Brian Bishore of Keychain Logistics and Matt Kochman from Buster, who are using these data to keep Americans safe and create new jobs at the same time. A wonderful two-for-one deal for America. It's that kind of impact that explains why President Obama signed the landmark Open Data Executive Order last May that requires going forward data generated by the government to be made available in open, machine-readable formats by default, while appropriately safeguarding privacy, security, and confidentiality. His hope was that entrepreneurs just like Brian and Matt would start companies just like the ones they've started and create exciting, innovative products powered by our data, just like you've seen today. We've also heard about how agencies are leveraging the power of open data and apps to empower Americans. We've heard about how the State Department has released a very exciting new API to share travel warnings and alerts with U.S. citizens overseas. Can't wait to see how developers and entrepreneurs leverage that data. You've heard about DOE's Lantern app that will provide helpful information and assistance during electrical outages caused by disasters. You've heard about GeoQ, which will crowdsource geotagged photos of disaster-affected areas to enable rapid assessment of damaged areas and facilitate help getting to the right place at the right time. We've heard about LaborSite, created in response to Seth and Javier's Open Data Challenge to promote fair labor practices, empowering consumers with information about local businesses' compliance with labor laws. These are really powerful tools. And I just want to actually call out another very special phenomenon behind a lot of this. We've had a leader in the federal government who's not only open to working with these kinds of innovations, but who's been incredibly enthusiastic about soliciting them and nurturing the safety data community, and comes with a platinum-plated set of credentials when it comes to helping Americans keep the country safe. This person is a real hero of mine, a hero to a lot of us, and a hero of safety innovators everywhere, FEMA Deputy Administrator Rich Serino, right here. Who very sadly, after long distinguished service in the U.S. government, is going to be returning home to Boston. Well, actually, he's been commuting from Boston, so we'll make his wife happy finally and go back to Boston in a couple weeks. Like many of us, Rich saw firsthand during Hurricane Sandy how tech companies, volunteers, faith-based organizations, businesses worked side by side with FEMA and other agencies, as well as the White House, to build helpful tools and cut through red tape to get help to people when they needed it most. That process made one thing super clear. Tech expertise and data are transforming disaster response recovery for the better, and the sky's the limit as far as that is concerned. When Rich is not called to a disaster, he's actually traveling around the country working with the innovation community at FEMA think tank events, something he's actually now institutionalizing as a practice at FEMA. We had the pleasure of hosting 2 of these events at the White House, most recently last August, and you saw today how vibrant that emerging disaster response innovative community is, with companies like GetAround offering the use of cars, TaskRabbit, super exciting, offering highly skilled volunteers, CrowdTilt offering a platform to crowdsource funding for small businesses to rebuild, the Weather Channel, what an incredible platform offering to publicize standardized hashtag to 100 million homes to crowdsource data, Geophedia offering a free platform to identify the location of downed power lines and operational gas stations through tweets and the posting of photos. When you think about just all of that power from all corners of the country coming together to fight disasters, to actually aid disaster recovery response, makes you incredibly optimistic about the future of disaster response and recovery in this country. Now, let me just mention quickly that after lunch, we're going to keep this creative mojo going. We're not going to stop. It's going to keep flowing through a series of data jams. I think there are 5 or 6 data jams happening, which is, I think, a record, a data jam record, Guinness Book of World Records, when it comes to open data innovation. So 6 simultaneous data jams where you can find a team to personally scrub in and build even more awesome tools for the future. Are you a first responder? Give developers feedback on the ideal tool you would benefit from. Are you a company that potentially has resources that could help improve people's safety in your community should a disaster strike? Commit to sharing those resources in the case of a disaster. These tools don't build themselves. It takes the commitment of community members to leverage their unique skills and work together to figure stuff out and build powerful aids for the community. We need all hands on deck. We need to unleash the full power of our nation's ingenuity to make as much progress as we can. So in closing, I wanted to give a special shout out, not just to everybody in the room, but again to the incredibly hardworking team of public sector entrepreneurs that leads the Safety Data Initiative and has made today's event possible. If you're in the audience, can you please stand so we can give you a round of applause? Safety Data Initiative team. Innovators across agencies who have actually powered this phenomenon to date and are going to keep powering it forward in the future. I also want to personally thank Deputy Secretary Seth Harris for his personal dedication to advancing the Safety Data Initiative. Sadly, as you may know, tomorrow is his last day with the administration, and I know all of us will truly miss working with this truly remarkable and hyper-dedicated and hyper-innovative public servant. But our progress will not stop. It will not stop, will it? It's going to keep going. It's going to keep going and help save and improve more and more lives. We look forward to collaborating further with all of you to tap into the power of open data to advance public safety in all kinds of creative and powerful ways. I can't wait to see, we all can't wait to see what new products, services, insights, breakthroughs, innovations, and tools you'll create and the kinds of impact you will have. And there are a few other efforts, I think, in which we can all engage that are more directly connected to the literal saving of lives of our fellow Americans. So this is really sacred, incredible work, and so exciting to see where it's going to go. And as you do that work, thank you for everything you've done. Thank you even more for everything you will do. May the force continue to run strongly in you, and may the Safety Data Initiative rock on. Congratulations, and thanks so much.